I'll call the meeting to order. Before we start, let's each take a moment and, in our own way, ask for guidance in the decisions that we'll be making tonight on behalf of the county. Thank you. Roll call.
Ken Talbot,
Here at last.
Alan Easley, Leon Griffith,
Here.
Helen Glass, Jay Craddock,
Here.
Ronald Merrick's,
Here.
Carol Yankman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, you will have the agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, to hear a motion, we approve the agenda as written.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you very much. You also have the minutes of the meeting of May 21st. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? They seem pretty short, don't they? Do I hear a motion that the minutes be approved as written?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Old business.
I don't have any, Mr. Chairman.
And new business.
We have 3 cases next month, a special use permit for a public garage and 2 more large-scale solar facilities.
Okay, excellent. No chairman's report? So, everybody ready?
Ready.
We proceed to the public hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 5, Division 7 of the Pittsylvania County Zoning Ordinance, we, the Board of Zoning Appeals, have been empowered to hear and decide specific applications and appeals in support of said ordinance. In accomplishing this important task, we're charged with promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Pittsylvania County. We must ensure that all our decisions and recommendations be directed to these goals and that each be consistent with the environment, the comprehensive plan, and in the best interest of Pittsylvania County, its citizens, and its posterity. Anyone here to speak to the board other than the applicant regarding zoning cases will be limited to 3 minutes. So with that, the public hearing in case S-19-004 is now open. The time is 7:05. Report, please.
Case S-19-004, Whitehorn Solar LLC has petitioned for a special use permit on a total of 700.72 acres located on Taylor's Mill Road, Galveston Road, and East Gretna Road in the Bannister and Callens Gretna election districts for a large-scale solar energy facility. The Planning Commission recommended by unanimous vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Tom Green and others are here to represent the petition.
Okay. Mr. Green? Is that right, Green?
That's right, green,
Okay.
like the color.
What would you like to say in support of the application?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to propose this solar project in Pittsylvania County. We have been working on this project for well over a year. I have had the opportunity to meet a lot of great people here in this community, and we are hopeful that we're able to move this project forward and build a state-of-the-art 50 megawatt solar project. We have been working with longtime landowners in the community, Mr. and Mrs. Vernon Moon. We have been working with PJM on an interconnection process to inject the power into the grid. We have been working with environmental consultants to do the appropriate work necessary to get the authorizations from the state and federal authorities. And we've been spending a lot of time doing community outreach, meeting with the neighbors to the project, We've tried to knock on everyone's door. I think we've been fairly successful with that. We met with yet one more person who was at the hearing last week. We met with him this morning, had a good meeting. And so we also had a community meeting at the local fire department and made ourselves available to answer any questions. It's our approach to get out there early and meet as many people as we can and answer as many questions as we can so that people know that what we're doing. We feel like this is a good thing for the community. It's a good thing for the environment. And ultimately, it'll be a good thing for the county in terms of tax revenue. A project like this requires almost no services from the county, but does pay taxes considerably higher than the current use. And so I'm open to any questions, of course, and be happy to answer anything I can.
Okay, any questions for the applicant at this time?
I have none.
The only concern that has been raised with previous applications is, we have put it in the form of a condition, is that the applicant will respond promptly and mitigate any complaints of radio frequency interference of RF5.
Okay.
Would you be willing to accept that condition?
Yes,
Okay.
we would.
I guess, well, we've got some smaller ones. We don't have any of the large-scale ones in operation yet, but do we?
Ringo, well, Ringo is in the process.
But was that large-scale or was that small?
Yes, large scale.
Okay, that was my only question. Anybody else? Nothing? All right, we may have some questions before we're done.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, we'll hear from the public. We have one person signed up, Art Bruner. Mr. Bruner, what would you like to say?
Hello, everyone. I'm Art Brunner. I live in the Climax area of Chatham. I also have some property in Gretna. I am fully in favor of this approval. I've been following the solar exploration, I guess you'd say, since the zoning for the whole county actually started with the solar projects by a year ago, a while back. And I've been in favor of that. Haven't seen any activity yet on that prior application, which was 1,500 acres. But on this one, I have to go with my full belief that this type of project, assuming that they go with the cares of the environment, things like that, as per the zoning and all that, I'm fully in favor of this. I think it would be good for the county, good for the area of Gretna, and I'm curious to see when some of these big solar projects actually start hitting the ground here in Pittsylvania County, because I have property abutting one of them. And I fully believe in solar. I fully believe if properly handled, it can be a good thing for the economy as well as the farmers if things are done according to the way the zoning application process is fulfilled. So that's about all I have to say. I'm in favor. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Bruner was the only one that signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the board before we close the public hearing? Please. Name and district?
I'm Sonia Ingram. I'm from Pittsylvania County, and I currently live in Danville, and I work for Preservation Virginia, Historic Preservation Organization. But I guess I was just starting out a little bit surprised that project of this scale, this many acres being taken out of agricultural use hasn't had more input from the public. But I personally didn't know about it until I read in the paper about the Planning Commission meeting. So I wasn't able to go to that. But I just do have a couple of concerns. And one is the taking it out of agricultural use. It's like 700, 800 acres. And as you know, agriculture is our biggest industry, and has anybody, has anybody had any questions about that? How is that going to, what has been grown there in the past? Is that going to affect, any of our farmers? I think, the best scenario for these big solar farms is like brownfields development, like brownfields so you're not taking a use that's, a successful use of land, taking it out of that, but putting it in something that's already an industrial site, for instance, that's, where the buildings have been taken down or something. But beside that, my other concern is really the landscape. And this is something that I think people take for granted. We have such a beautiful county, and I hear people oftentimes say that the prettiest part of Pittsylvania County is up around Gretna, is what they say. And I agree with them. And even it's not just because I'm from Gretna area, but this is, and I haven't been there to really ride around and look at exactly where it'll be, but it's the entrance to Gretna, and there's Yates Tavern, and there's a cemetery there that I don't know who owns the cemetery, but it's one of the oldest cemeteries in the community. And so those things, how are they going to be affected? And I know that there's some sort of a buffering plan, like a tree buffer. I don't know if what that, I would really take a close look at that and see, what types, what's the width of the buffer, what type of trees they're talking about. And is there also going to be a fence around it? Because I think the one in Ringgold has from what I've seen, it's just a big fence around it. It really takes away from the landscape. And these things can be minimized, but those are my two most important, issues. And again, I'm kind of surprised that more people haven't just kind of, had more questions about it, I guess you could say. And I think this is like the third one in the county. And I know in Caswell County, some people have, there's been a lot of these in Caswell County, and kind of after the fact, they've kind of had some regrets about it and wish they could have done it a little bit differently. So those are my only suggestions. I would just suggest to kind of take a step back and maybe do a little bit more research, involve more of the community. That's all. Thanks.
Do you have any specifics of the regrets that Caswell County has?
They're all about the landscape and how it looks, how it, I think, like I said, people take for granted what they have, and for some reason, landscapes and scenery kind of seems to be, the value of that is kind of forgotten sometimes, but it is real important, and sometimes later on people realize the importance of it, after it's too late. But it is important. And it's important for things like tourism, which is really growing, and I really wish it would grow more in Pittsylvania County, but tourism is I think I read today, it's like the 5th largest industry in the state. In this area, I mean, we are primed for tourism if we would really get behind it. But I know like Halifax and Franklin have really good tourism programs, but those are the types of things that tourists want to see is what we have here. So
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? All right, if not, at this point, do you have any rebuttal to what you've heard from the public that you'd like to make?
Well, I wouldn't say rebuttal. Thank you for your comments. We spent a lot of time trying to select sites that will have reduced impact. We selected this site because it really has very few adjacent homes. We have already been meeting, as I mentioned, with the landowners around the facility, the folks who would be seeing the facility the most. And we've talked about vegetative screening that we would be using in those places. Again, we met with one landowner just this morning and talked about it. We were going to meet with another one tomorrow. So we are making an effort to make these projects as positive for the community as possible. Now, I'm not going to deny that it's not or that it's a big project. It is. The energy needs of the United States are great. We're transitioning in a lot of ways to this type of energy, and these are the kinds of projects that can produce affordable electricity for everybody. So again, we've made every effort to reach out to the people who will be living the closest to the facilities, and I think it says a lot that almost no one has come forward of that group to criticize the project. Thank you.
Wait a minute, I do have a question. Number one, as has been pointed out, the board has some experience because we've had a number of applications, but the general public doesn't have a lot of experience yet, so that may be why we haven't heard as much except from. Can you, I'm having trouble orienting myself on the map there. Can you point out the cemetery? It's called the Pines, and it's, you cross the railroad. Where's the railway?
It's right here.
That's the railway, all right. And where's the Pines?
Cemetery's here.
All right, is that the substation where you will do your interconnect?
Yeah, we would have a project sub here, and then we're going to interconnect. There's a 69 kV line right there that is already connected to that substation.
Okay, so you'll connect to the high voltage, high tension line down here, not at the substation?
That's right.
All right, and where's the cemetery again?
It's up here.
Just that's the substation, just about on the hill above the substation.
Yeah.
Okay, so there will be some panels across the road
Right.
from the cemetery, but not.
But on our plan here, we show that we're going to have screening all along there.
Okay.
And we prepared this.
Yes.
And so here you see just the field there. This is what it would look like with the project there. And this is what the mature trees would look like.
Mhm.
And we've been talking to the county about that. We understand another project went in where the plantings were very, very small, and that is not our intent. We plan to put things in that will be covering that fence, completely in a matter of years. So that's our objective.
And what is what's the life of the facility? How many years?
Well, we're at 40 years is what we're asking for.
And the life of the vegetative
Well, we
screen
would
that
be
you.
responsible for maintaining that for the life of the project.
So renewing it because they're like,
That's right.
if
If
it's.
trees die, we're going to replace them.
If it's loblolly, I think 20, 25 years is the most you can expect, so.
Okay, yes.
So they would be renewed as.
Yes.
All right, and where's Highway 40? Is that on here?
That's up here.
So it doesn't go all the way to 40.
No.
And the railway, so it's on the other side of the tracks from
It is,
Gretna
so-
proper, so.
I
the
know
town of
someone
Gretna-
mentioned that it's the entrance to Gretna, but the entrance to Gretna is on this
Yeah.
29. There's just a huge bank of trees there. You can't see through
Well, it's on the
there.
other side of the railway, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've heard the applicant, we've heard the public, we've heard the rebuttal, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing at 7:21. Okay. As a special use, our obligation is to identify any adverse effects that rise to the level of requiring mitigation. Are there any adverse effects that you think the applicant hasn't addressed that rise to the level that we might have to consider conditions mitigating? issue of agricultural land, that has been a concern, but as big as the county is, and as much land as we have under cultivation, most of it's either being converted to pasture or to growing pine trees, so.
In my community, farming is basically gone. Years and years ago, there was lots and lots of family farms in the area. Those farms are growing over with second growth since they tried to salvage what they could with the timber. And I just want to say this, at one of our previous hearings, a gentleman come up to me after the hearing was over with tears in his eyes, and he said, I just want to tell you, you helped save our family farm by approving this project. So not all farming is bad when it comes to changing it over to a solar farm. I mean, it's to me, it's a win-win if the neighbors, and he's already talked to the neighbors, didn't object to it.
Well, we certainly haven't scratched the surface as far as running out of agricultural land.
Right.
Years from now, maybe, I think in my opinion, it might be an issue, but I don't see it as being a big issue right now. Because the ideal land, what these power plants are going to want, they're going to want the same level land that is valuable for agriculture. So there is possibly there could be a day when they compete, but personally, I don't think we're there yet. Aesthetics, landscaping, I think the applicant, in my opinion, has addressed that. I've got relatives at the cemetery in the Pines, and I visit there several times a year. So,
One thing, maintaining the outside with the board or whatever, but also the maintenance on the inside, is that something that's done on a regular basis? I know there's one in Ringgold looks pretty shoddy.
you mean like grass
They
mowing?
don't keep the grass cut like they ought to and stuff like that. So how does the maintenance on the inside of these fields work?
Please, yes, please.
We put a lot of time and energy into operations and maintenance, and so we use different strategies for that. A project like this would be there'd be a lot of mowing. There would be some selective spraying. We have talked about putting in smaller areas because of the size of this, other kind of what we call pollinator plants that we've experimented with in other places. That's not, very easy. It's something we're trying to make work, but we are committed to maintaining these facilities in a way that they are in no way a burden to the neighbors. That's the last thing we want to do. We're here for the long haul, and we don't want to have a big weed farm blowing seed into the neighbor's farm field. So we take that very seriously.
So is Whitethorn the developer and the operator?
Yeah, I work for NG
Right.
Solar, and so Whitehorn is the name of the project company.
Okay, but is NG going to develop this and then sell it? or
No,
will they
we
operate?
are going to operate it.
Okay, that makes a big difference.
That's something we do.
Okay.
You couldn't put goats in there. Was there any kind of animals that you researched?
We're not going to put goats.
To,
Not since my wife brought
to
home 3
graze.
goats are we
I'm
going to put
serious.
goats.
Any kind of animal could graze that property, and
Sheep, perhaps. And that's been experimented with in a few places.
a goat would climb up on them.
Yeah, they would chew everything. There wouldn't be anything left. So,
There's some fried goats in there.
In fact, on 220 going toward Roanoke, have you ever seen the goats on the billboard there?
Yeah.
They climb up on the billboard on the walkway.
oh
where
man, yeah, they are something. Maybe
Okay.
sheep, and folks have experimented with that. It's not a bad idea. I actually kind of like it.
Well, that goes back to the farming thing.
Yep.
You got both worlds in.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so as it stands right now, the commitment we have are those points in the application regarding site barriers, et cetera. And what I would like to propose as a condition that the applicant will respond promptly and mitigate any instances of radio frequency interference. Because they use high-frequency inverters that take the DC from the panels and convert it to AC, and there's always the chance that,
That was in your packet.
yep. And you've read the proposed special use permit conditions that they have submitted. So, do we need any more information before? So what's your pleasure? What's called for?
Positive motion.
Positive motion. There are no adverse effects, so we're actually obligated to issue consider a positive motion. So in that case, the positive motion would read, whereas Whitethorn Solar LLC has petitioned the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special use permit for a large-scale solar energy facility, and whereas we find no substantial detriment to adjacent property, that the character of the zoning district will not be changed thereby, and that such use will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance, I move the special use permit be granted with the following condition. The applicant will respond promptly and mitigate any instances of radio frequency interference. Is that your motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? And a
Do you
second.
want to include the conditions?
Yeah. Is that understood, or should that be?
Yes.
part
Well,
of
it's in their application. If you want to, we can make it part of the motion now. With the conditions, number one, proffered by the applicant.
Yeah. There you go.
Proffered by the applicant. And number two, the applicant will. So the motion would say then, with the following conditions. Number one, those proffered by the applicant. And number two, the applicant will respond promptly and mitigate any instances of
Right.
RS5.
So,
Moved. And was there, and seconded, okay. The motion's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor of granting the special use permit, signify by raising your hand. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?